by saying, no, why don't we change the presidential system of government and let us move on or go back to the parliamentary system of government. Now, there's a need to just explain the difference between the presidential system and the parliamentary system. The presidential system came after the parliamentary system. We have been practicing the parliamentary system from 1922, from the Clifford Constitution and culminating into the Independence Constitution. Now, the Independence Constitution was replaced by the Republican Constitution. Now, all of these features or incidences of the application of the British Westminster export model system. Now, it would not surprise you, or shouldn't surprise you, that that system lasted only for 6 years. Because of the problems when you read Nigeria's political history, it's a shame that the young ones are no longer being taught history in school. You would know that the centrifugal and centripetal forces that were inherent or applicable to the practice of that system ensured that it could not last more than 6 years. That was when the incidences of carpet crossing, the incidences of vote of no confidence, Operation Wegte, women entering into the polling booth, apparently pregnant, but coming out fully delivered of twins in the nature of ballot papers stuffing. Now, all these things were how we started to miss the way. The British invested in us, and we inherited a very fine system, a working system. And it's worked for them till today. And because we couldn't manage our system, our youths are now jabbering to the UK, who are looking at us to say, but we were at the same level. We gave you the same thing in 1960. Lagos was not looking better than London in 1960. The functionality of all the services, apart from the fact that there were no underground railways, were almost everything. Buses were working. So let's leave that aside. So because of the difference between the presidential and the parliamentary system that broke down, Nigeria decided to now experiment on a new governance platform. They considered the French system, which is an amalgam of the parliamentary and presidential system. And to do this, in 1975, 50 wise men were appointed, headed by Chief Rotimi Williams, SAN of blessed memory. And all the constitutional gurus and juggernauts of that era. And they came up with the draft constitution. Now, the draft constitution was also equally subjected to the scrutiny of a constituent assembly that was manned and headed by the late Justice Daudu of blessed memory. I think the first legal practitioner from Cross River axis. And that was when the Sharia issue first reared up its head. And there was a lot of debates, a lot of seminars. As students, we attended some, saw the likes of Brian Tyler, Professor Dudley, so many great political scientists debate the upcoming structure of Nigeria. Nigeria. After General Obasanjo was able to douse, and the Supreme Legislative Council was able to douse the tension brought by the Sharia issue, it went to the SMC for sort of some kind of vetting. Not much was added, I think just about 14 provisions. And those, the 1979 Constitution, midwifed and brought into being the presidential system. So there's a history which proponents of the parliamentary system must advert to, and remember why the parliamentary system failed. And I'll get to the point why it is being advocated today in due course. Now, 1979, it took off again, but the attitude of politicians ensured that it crashed after 4 years. That was the era in which we saw the signs of what we were seeing. Every single person had a private jet that was worthy of his name. Almost every town had a brewery. All sorts of, there was too much money in the system, yet there was hunger in the land. However, the attitude and the misbehavior of the political class led the military to take over the reins of power. Then there was a military interregnum from 1979 to 1983 to 1999. There's no need to go into that. But then, one point which is relevant to what Umar has said is that the 1999 Constitution, which is being castigated for not having been bequeathed to Nigerians by the people, is almost a carbon copy of the 1979 Constitution. Now, if you look at the history or the process, the iron furnace that the 1979 Constitution went into being before it was adopted, it will be telling a lie to ourselves that the 1999 Constitution does not have the approval of the people, because it has gone through. There is no difference between the 1979 Constitution and the 1999 Constitution. But even at that, the 1999 Constitution was still subjected to another Constituent Assembly, I think presided over by Justice Nikki Toby. It went through the almost identical process that the 1979 Constitution went through. And if all fails, and we have a constitutional expert here, there is the pure theory of law, which ensures that having taken benefit of the 1999 Constitution, they are still taking benefit of it. You cannot now come and deny that that thing was not given by the people. Is it the people that said you shouldn't obey specific clauses in the Constitution? Let us tell ourselves the truth. The problem that we have at this point in time is the fact that people try to avoid implementing clear, straightforward provisions of the Constitution that appear to be unfavorable to their political agenda. So long as we can, and what that marks the difference between us here and the people who borrowed it from. You saw how quickly President Trump was put in his place when he tried to deny the results of a clear, free and fair election. If it is Nigeria and you play bet Nigeria, you will lose your bet if you bet on the fact that any president who tried what Trump tried in the US will not get away with it. He will get away with it neatly. Nothing will happen. So it is a failure of these institutions that we should address, which is brought about by the attitude of politicians. And rather than go ahead and examine their attitude, commit class suicide where necessary, and be born again as clean politicians. They are stoking the fires of insecurity, hunger, corruption, and so many other ailments that have taken us to the point where we are. And the point is that if we are not careful, we are looking at the gradual disintegration of Nigeria. You see, nothing much will happen. Because when the thing gets to its climax, I regret to say that we might just find us breaking up according to our fault lines. I know that there are places, regions that today, if you say to your tents through Nigeria, they are ready to go and set up their full structure. Their president will emerge, everybody will emerge. So maybe one or two zones are not ready. And people should work. We like to use it. Nigeria is stronger, united. But it cannot be a strong nation with this level of corruption and we are witnessing. Look at even the youth that we are placing hope and saying they're leaders of tomorrow. Suleja, Dogarawa in Zaria, some parts in Lagos, in Abuja here. Trucks are waylaid, the contents looted and shared gleefully under the pretext of hunger. Hunger is no excuse for criminality or robbery or thievery. You cannot be a thief and then you come out and tell us that it is hunger. I mean, people who are doing the looting were laughing. In Abuja, when they looted the palliative store, or what they call palliative store, or a vehicle that they made, they said that it was having the logo of federal government, and that gave them the right to take it. Now, what the seeming masses are telling the politicians or the political class is that it is right to also equally loot your money and not feel any pain. Because you had no conscience looting the contents of the truck belonging to a man who has invested his money in that business. And you are not even thinking of him, you are thinking of your stomach. Very soon it will get to the point whereby you will be sitting in your house, people will enter and demand that where is the pot of soup that your wife cooked, and where is the soup, and they will take your foodstuff away, carry your TV. It is just daylight robbery under the guise of economic hardship. And our law enforcement agencies sit down and are watching because they do not have any answer, they do not know their work again, the institutions have failed, and we are literally running a rogue and a failed nation. So it is just a matter of time that things will fall apart because the center cannot go. Now, is constitutional amendment then the answer to these vices? I do not think so. And even if constitutional amendment is the answer, some of the things, or quite a number of things that Alhaji Kogoma has mentioned, and some of the things that others will suggest, I need the ones that are relevant, not the backtracking to a parliamentary system. To me, that is not relevant. I have in the paper tried to show you how many times, I must confess, I was initially of the view that our amendments were too many. But when I did some research, I found out that the Americans have only amended from 1789 27 times. I think the most egregious amender is India, that between 1950 and today have amended their constitution 108 times. And their 15th amendment is just to increase the age of judges from 60 to 62. South Africa, I think South Africa sometimes with the 1909 enacted their constitution, and they transited to their post-apartheid constitution in 1997. But they themselves have amended 18 times, I think, taking it from 1990. So I revised my stand, which was that our amendments are too many, to the fact that with federal constitutions, the constitution is usually just seen as a more superior statute, which is or should be amenable to amendments or reviews or alterations as need may be. So I'm now a new convert to the idea of amendments, having seen from the comparative analysis that federal constitutions are never perfect, and there are changing dynamics that from time to time will warrant constitutional amendment. And an example is the removal of immunity. I was always advocating for a partial removal of the immunity. But that's the discussion for another day. Now, I've tried to explain how and in what way and manner the legislature have tried to do the 4 or 5 amendments that we've had. General President Buhari did 16 amendments at the eve of his departure. Some curiously signed by the president, the new president. I always thought that all legislative processes came to an end after the departure of the president, under whose this is called the 10th Assembly. But President Tinubu increased the ages of judges from 65 to 70. But nobody has tested it, so we take it that it is presumed correct until found against upon court. Now the real point is this, and you would wonder why the National Assembly is proposing a return to parliamentary democracy after we are still grappling with the presidential democracy, which gives a strong center. Now, the distinction between the two is in separation of powers. The parliamentary system allows the executive and the legislature to cohabit. So from among the legislature, the prime minister or the leader of government is chosen. Now, in the executive, in the presidential system, there is a watertight demarcation between the legislature and the executive. They cannot overlap. They can't mix. They can't mingle. So you can't be a parliamentarian under the executive presidential system and then be a minister at the same time. But it is possible in the parliamentary system. Now I suspect that a lot of parliamentarians, and I have my eyes on some, want to be head of government. And the only way they can do this is to fool Nigerians into thinking that come and practice the parliamentary system so that they remain in parliament, they go back, ensure they win elections. I didn't say redo. Ensure they win elections. Come back and then start passing prime ministership among themselves. So I think that's the underlying motive. I cannot see any other motive other than personal ambition. Because it is clear that we do not have the temperament, the honesty, the institutional discipline to manage a parliamentary democracy. In parliamentary democracies, people resign when there is a hint of wrongdoing against them. Nigerians don't resign from office. Even when you pursue them, they go to court. So the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and I said, even because Parliament will be adamant, they will go ahead with these amendments. But thank God for veto power. When Comrade Joe Ajero tried to take labor to protest against, the President came out, guns blazing, and he said Ajero should drop politics and they should meet in 2027. Now, what I picked from that is that the President has thrown his heart into the ring for the 2027 battle. That's between him and we, the electorate, and whether his policies work between now and then. Because I'm sure there will be no carry-go in the next dispensation. But let him pray that these policies will turn around the fortunes of Nigeria. Now back to the point, which is that having indicated his interest in 2027, the fact is that if the parliamentarians succeed in amending the constitution for a parliamentary system, there goes his ambition. Because it will now be a parliamentary system, Fabio will be the prime minister and the head of government, flying in presidential jet and taking all the decisions. So the only thing the president can do is when such a self-serving procedure comes out, to veto it. And if they have the support to do veto override by 4/5 of it, but we can't be playing ping pong with the head of Nigerians. We tried parliamentary, we went to presidential. Now because some of you want to be ministers at the same time as parliamentarians, you now want to go back to parliamentary system. We should not allow it to happen. If it was genuine and altruistic, one would support it. But I do not think that it is genuine, I do not think it is altruistic, I do not think it is coming from a good place. And I think it should be shut down as early as possible. If we want to try a system of government, try an indigenous African system of government. Let our eggheads sit down on the table, leave Europe, leave America, devise a system of government that Nigerians will be willing to follow. When that happens, and if we are not incapable or unqualified or not having the materials to devise for ourselves a system of government, but to play with our intelligence and then push on. If there is anything in need of change, it is the political attitude of politicians. That is the only thing that we need to change, and that of Nigerians generally. Because the masses, the elite, are all substantially corrupt. And if we don't remove that from our system, we are not going anywhere. Thank you very much.
Please let's appreciate Mr. Daudu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for that contribution.